My name is Jonas Lane, and I'm standing in the bathroom of the Grand Hyatt's rooftop ballroom, staring at myself in a mirror that costs more than I make in a month. The secondhand suit I'm wearing, navy blue with a slight shine at the elbows, feels like a costume. Outside, 300 of San Diego's legal elite are sipping champagne that costs $40 a glass, discussing cases that reshape entire neighborhoods while I work 14-hour days trying to keep families from being thrown onto the street. I shouldn't be here. Every instinct in my body is screaming at me to walk out, to take the elevator down 23 floors and drive home to my studio apartment where the radiator clangs, and the walls are thin enough to hear my neighbor's television. But Veronica Lane, my mother, made it clear that my absence tonight would be noted. In her world, that's not a threat. It's a promise. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The bathroom door swings open, and I hear the familiar sound of designer heels clicking against marble. Through the mirror, I watch a woman in Louboutins adjust her diamond earrings, the kind that catch light from across a room. This is Veronica's world. A world where success is measured in billable hours and corner offices, where justice is a commodity to be bought and sold to the highest bidder. I splash cold water on my face and return to the ballroom. The space is magnificent. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking San Diego Bay, crystal chandeliers casting warm light over tables draped in ivory silk. Everyone here looks like they belong. Smooth faces, confident postures, the easy laughter of people who've never had to choose between groceries and rent. I find my assigned seat at table 12, sandwiched between a personal injury attorney who bills at $800 an hour and a real estate developer whose company has displaced more families than I can count. They nod politely when I sit down, then return to their conversation about vacation homes in Aspen. The lights dim, and Veronica takes the stage. At 54, she commands attention the way other people command their morning coffee. Effortlessly. Completely. Her silver hair is pulled back in a perfect chignon. Her black Armani dress hugs her frame without a wrinkle. She's beautiful in the way powerful women learn to be beautiful. Sharp, untouchable, dangerous. Ladies and gentlemen, she begins, her voice carrying easily across the ballroom. Tonight we celebrate justice. Real justice. The kind that builds cities, protects property rights, and ensures that progress isn't held hostage by misguided sentiment. The crowd murmurs approval. I shift in my seat, my stomach tightening. I know that tone. I've heard it my entire life, usually directed at me. But justice, Veronica continues, her eyes scanning the room until they find mine, isn't always easy. Sometimes it requires us to make difficult choices. Sometimes it requires us to acknowledge when someone we care about has lost their way. My blood turns to ice. She wouldn't. Not here. Not in front of everyone. But Veronica Lane has never been one to show mercy, even to her own son. The cafe Miguel Reyes chose sits in the shadow of downtown's glass towers, the kind of place where construction workers grab coffee before dawn and law students survive on caffeine and determination. I arrive early, my hands shaking as I order black coffee I don't want. Yesterday's humiliation replays in my mind like a broken record. My son Jonas, Veronica had said from that gleaming podium, her voice carrying across 300 guests, is a perfect example of how privilege can be wasted. He had Harvard Law School at his fingertips. Instead, he chose to play savior to people who don't want to be saved. The laughter that followed wasn't cruel, exactly. It was worse. It was pitying. These people looked at me like I was a lost child, someone to shake their heads at over dinner parties. I wanted to disappear into the marble floor. But then Miguel Reyes had stood up. He's sitting across from me now, mid-50s, with silver threading through his dark hair and eyes that seem to see everything. His suit is well-tailored but not flashy, the uniform of someone who works with documents instead of juries. Your mother, he says without preamble, never told you about David Castillo. It's not a question. I shake my head, something cold settling in my stomach. Miguel reaches into his briefcase and pulls out a manila folder, worn at the edges like it's been handled countless times. David was your father, your real father. The words hang in the air between us. I stare at the folder, afraid to touch it, afraid of what it might contain. That's impossible, I whisper. My father was Robert Lane. He died when I was 10. Robert Lane never existed. Miguel's voice is gentle but firm. David Castillo died when you were 10. He was a civil rights attorney who fought for tenant rights, immigrant families, prisoners. The man Veronica told you your father was a fiction she created. My coffee grows cold as Miguel opens the folder. Inside are photographs. A man with kind eyes and my same stubborn chin, holding a baby I somehow recognize as myself. There are legal documents, birth certificates, and at the bottom, a sealed envelope with my name written in careful script. David left this for you, Miguel says, sliding the envelope across the small table. He knew Veronica would try to erase him, so he made sure there would be proof. My hands tremble as I tear open the seal. The letter inside is written on legal letterhead, David Castillo, attorney at law. My dear Jonas, if you're reading this, it means Miguel has finally found the courage to tell you the truth. I'm sorry I can't be there to explain it myself, but I want you to know that every day of your life, I have loved you. Not the version of you that Veronica wanted you to become, but exactly who you are. Your mother and I met when we were both young attorneys, both believing we could change the world. But somewhere along the way, she chose power over people. I chose people over power. That choice cost me everything, including you. You are not Jonas Lane. You are Jonas Castillo, and that name carries a legacy of fighting for those who can't fight for themselves. I've left you something, a foundation, resources, a path forward. But more than that, I've left you the truth about who you really are. Don't let her voice become the only voice in your head. You are good enough. You have always been good enough. With all my love, Dad. I'm crying now, ugly tears that I can't stop. Miguel slides a tissue across the table and waits. He has the patience of someone who's delivered difficult news before. There's more, he says finally. David established a legal trust in your name. The David Castillo Foundation. It's been dormant since his death, but it's still legally yours. The resources to fight back. They've been waiting for you. I look up at him, this stranger who seems to know more about my life than I do. Why now? Why didn't you tell me before? Because you weren't ready before, Miguel says simply. Yesterday, watching her humiliate you in front of all those people, I realized you'd never be ready until you understood what you were really fighting for. Veronica's mansion sits in La Jolla like a fortress overlooking the Pacific, all clean lines and cold marble. I park my beat-up Honda between her Mercedes and Maxwell's Tesla, feeling like an intruder in a life that was supposedly mine. The housekeeper, Rosa, opens the door with surprise and something that might be relief. She's worked for my mother for 15 years, one of the few constants in my childhood, after the fictional Robert Lane died. Jonas, she says in accented English, your mother, she is in her office, she is not happy. I can hear Veronica's voice carrying down the hallway, sharp and commanding as she tears someone apart over the phone. Probably another subordinate who made the mistake of thinking she was human. Instead of going to her office, I head upstairs to what used to be my childhood bedroom. It's been converted into Maxwell's gym now, all mirrors and expensive equipment. But I remember where I used to hide things, and I need to know if any trace of my real father remains in this house. The garage crawl space is exactly as I remember it. Dark, dusty, smelling of motor oil and forgotten summers. I pull out my phone's flashlight and crawl to the far corner, where 13-year-old me once hid comic books from Veronica's disapproving glare. My hands find cardboard, and I drag out a box that wasn't there before. Or maybe it was, and I was too young to understand what I was looking at. Inside are photographs of David Castillo, legal briefs in his handwriting, and a small trophy engraved with Outstanding Achievement in Pro Bono Work. There's also a leather journal, and as I flip through it I realize it's full of letters David wrote but never sent. Letters to me. Jonas turned 3 today. Veronica wouldn't let me see him, but I drove by the park where she takes him to play. He's beautiful, running around in that red shirt I sent for his birthday. I wonder if he knows it's from me. First day of kindergarten. I wanted to be there so badly I sat in my car outside the school like some kind of stalker, but I saw him walk in holding Veronica's hand, looking brave and scared all at once. I'm so proud of him. He's 8 now, and I haven't seen him in 2 years. Veronica's lawyers made it clear that any contact would result in a restraining order. But I hear things that he's smart, that he asks questions, that he cares about people. Maybe that's enough. Maybe knowing he exists is enough. I'm so absorbed in reading that I don't hear the footsteps until it's too late. What are you doing in my garage? Veronica stands in the doorway, backlit by the afternoon sun, looking like an avenging angel in her cream-colored suit. Maxwell hovers behind her, his face expressing the mild concern of someone watching a neighbor's domestic dispute. I stand up slowly, the journal still in my hands, looking for the truth. Her eyes fix on the journal, and for just a moment I see something crack in her perfect composure. Fear, maybe, or guilt. You have no right. I have every right, I interrupt, surprising myself with the steadiness of my voice. He was my father. David Castillo was my father, and you erased him. Maxwell clears his throat. Maybe we should discuss this inside. Telling and preparing this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. There's nothing to discuss, Veronica snaps, but she's looking at me with something I've never seen before. Not disappointment or irritation, but actual concern that I might be dangerous to her. Miguel Reyes came to see me, I continue. He told me about the foundation, about the trust fund, about the fact that my real name is Jonas Castillo. Veronica's face goes white. Miguel Reyes is a bitter old man living in the past. Whatever he told you. He showed me proof, I say, holding up the journal. David kept writing to me, even after you cut him out of my life. Even when he was dying. He chose to leave, she says, but there's no conviction in her voice anymore. He chose his causes over his family. No, I say, understanding flooding through me like cold water. You chose your career over him, over me, over anything that didn't fit into your perfect image. I walk past her toward the house, the box of David's belongings clutched against my chest. At the door, I turn back. I'm done trying to earn your approval, Veronica. I'm done pretending Robert Lane was ever real. And I'm done letting you define who I'm supposed to be. The David Castillo Foundation occupies a narrow building wedged between a taqueria and a laundromat in East San Diego, the kind of neighborhood where broken dreams go to rust. The paint is peeling. The windows are dusty. But when Miguel unlocks the front door, something inside me recognizes this place as home. He bought this building in 1998, Miguel explains as we climb creaking stairs to the second floor. Used his own money, never asked Veronica for a cent. He said lawyers should work where their clients live, not in glass towers downtown. The office at the top of the stairs is frozen in time, law books still on the shelves, a desk calendar turned to March 2003, the month David died. There's a photo on the desk of me at age 9, gap-toothed and grinning at a baseball game I don't remember attending. He came to every game he could, Miguel says, noticing my stare. Sat in the back, never said anything to Veronica, but he was there. He was always watching out for you. Evan appears in the doorway, out of breath from climbing the stairs. I called him on the way over, needing someone who knew me as I really am, not as Veronica's disappointment or David's lost son. This place is incredible, Evan says, running his fingers along the spines of legal books. Look at these case files. Tenant rights, housing discrimination, immigration law. Your dad wasn't just practicing law, he was changing lives. Miguel leads us to a locked filing cabinet and produces an old key. Inside are stacks of documents, financial records, and something that makes my breath catch. Architectural plans for expanding the foundation into a full legal aid clinic. The trust fund has been accumulating interest for 20 years, Miguel explains. There's enough money here to fund a full staff for 5 years, maybe more. David wanted you to have options when you were ready. I sit in David's chair, trying to imagine him here, working late into the night on cases that mattered more than money. On the desk blotter, barely visible under years of dust, is a child's drawing signed, "Love Jonas." I have no memory of making it, but the crayon Superman cape is unmistakably my work. There's something else, Miguel says, producing an old cassette player from the bottom drawer. David recorded messages for you. Instructions for running the foundation, legal advice, but mostly... He pauses, his weathered hands gentle on the plastic case. Mostly just a father talking to his son. He presses play, and David Castillo's voice fills the dusty office like a ghost returning home. Jonas, if you're hearing this, it means you've found your way back to who you really are. I know Veronica has probably told you that I abandoned you, that I chose work over family. The truth is more complicated than that. But it doesn't matter now. What matters is that you understand something. You are not defined by the circumstances of your birth or by the people who tried to shape you into something you're not. You are defined by the choices you make when nobody is watching. I close my eyes and listen to my father's voice, feeling pieces of myself clicking into place like a puzzle I never knew was incomplete. Camila Rios meets me at a coffee shop in Hillcrest, her press badge hanging from a lanyard and a laptop bag slung over her shoulder. She's younger than I expected, maybe 30, with intelligent dark eyes and the kind of focused energy that makes me understand why she's built a reputation for exposing corruption in San Diego's power circles. So you're the nonprofit guy who got roasted at Veronica Lane's charity gala, she says without preamble, sliding into the booth across from me. I saw the video someone posted on Twitter. That was brutal, even by her standards. You know my mother? I know her firm, Camilla corrects. I've been tracking Lane and Associates for months. They're involved in at least 6 different redevelopment projects that displaced low-income families, all under the guise of quote, urban renewal. The problem is proving they did anything technically illegal. I lean forward, lowering my voice. What if I told you I had access to internal documents? Financial records, correspondence, maybe even recorded conversations? Camilla's eyes sharpen. I'd say you have my attention. But I'd also say that stolen documents aren't admissible in court, and they're definitely not printable without corroboration. Not stolen, I say, pulling out a folder Miguel prepared for me. Inherited. I'm David Castillo's son and heir. These documents belong to the foundation he established. I watch recognition dawn on her face. David Castillo, the guy who sued half the city council in the 90s, the one who died in that car accident. The one who was systematically erased from his son's life by a woman who couldn't stand the idea that someone might choose principle over profit. Camilla takes the folder, her reporter's instincts warring with skepticism. She flips through financial statements, correspondence between David and city officials, and copies of complaints filed against developers who later became Veronica's clients. This is incredible stuff, she admits. But why come to me? Why not take it to the DA's office directly? Because I want people to understand what really happened, I say. I want them to see the pattern. David Castillo spent 15 years fighting the same battles I'm fighting now, and every time he got close to a breakthrough, Veronica Lane was there representing the other side. And you think this was personal? I think she was protecting an empire she built on the graves of everything he stood for. Camilla closes the folder, her decision made. Okay, I'm in. But I do this my way. Full investigation, multiple sources, everything verified. If your mother is as powerful as you say she is, we'll only get one shot at this. As if summoned by our conversation, my phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. Stop digging into matters that don't concern you. Some stones are better left unturned. M. Lane. I show the message to Camilla, who actually smiles. Maxwell Lane, your stepfather, she says. Apparently we're already making them nervous. The storage unit David rented is in a complex off Highway 8, the kind of place where people keep Christmas decorations and furniture from failed marriages. Miguel has kept the rent current for 20 years, waiting for this moment. Inside, boxes are stacked floor to ceiling. each one labeled in David's careful handwriting. Housing discrimination, 1995 to 97. City council corruption. Lane Associates, conflict of interest. Evan lets out a low whistle. Your dad was thorough. We spend hours going through documents, and a picture emerges that makes my stomach turn. Veronica wasn't just representing developers who displaced families. She was helping them identify targets. Buildings in neighborhoods David was working to protect would mysteriously come up for sale just weeks after he filed complaints on behalf of tenants. Look at this, Camila says, holding up a contract dated 6 months before David's death. Lane and Associates received a $200,000 retainer from Meridian Development to provide legal consultation on property acquisition in targeted urban zones. Targeted urban zones, I repeat. You mean the neighborhoods where my father's clients lived. Evan pulls out his laptop and starts cross-referencing addresses. 80% of the buildings your dad fought to protect were sold to Meridian within 2 years of his death. The families he was representing? They all got evicted. Quote, the more we dig, the clearer it becomes that Veronica didn't just choose career over family. She actively worked to destroy everything David built. His clients became her targets. His cases became her opportunities. We need proof she knew, Camila says. Right now this looks like coincidence. We need evidence of direct communication, planning, conspiracy. Miguel, who has been quietly sorting through boxes in the corner, holds up a manila envelope marked Private for Jonas only. Inside are audio cassettes, labeled with dates and names I recognize from David's case files. The first one we play makes everything clear. David's voice, tired but determined. March 15, 2003. Recording conversation with Veronica Lane regarding the Meridian situation. She's demanded I meet her at the office tonight. Says it's about Jonas, but I think she wants to make another deal. Then Veronica's voice, cold and businesslike. David, this has gone far enough. Your little crusade is affecting my clients, and it's affecting my son's future. You need to choose. Drop the Meridian case, or lose Jonas permanently. You can't keep him from me forever, Veronica. Watch me. I have custody, I have money, and I have connections you'll never have. But I'm offering you a chance. Drop the case. Retire from tenant advocacy, and you can see Jonas 1 weekend a month. Keep fighting, and I'll make sure he never knows you existed. David's voice cracks slightly. And if I agree, what happens to the families who are counting on me? That's not my problem. But Jonas is both of our problem, and I won't let you turn him into another one of your lost causes. The tape ends, and we sit in stunned silence. I feel sick, understanding finally that every choice David made was weighed against losing me completely. He chose his clients, I whisper. He chose what he thought you would want him to choose, Miguel corrects gently. David believed that if he compromised his principles to stay in your life, he wouldn't be the kind of father you deserved. The San Diego County Courthouse feels different when you're the plaintiff instead of the observer. I sit at the petitioner's table wearing David's good suit, which Miguel had saved all these years. It fits perfectly, as if it were always meant to be mine. Veronica arrives with a team of 3 attorneys, their collective billable hours probably exceeding my yearly salary. She looks at me across the courtroom with something that might be recognition. Not of me as her son, but of me as a genuine threat. Your Honor, my attorney begins, Jonas Lane seeks to reclaim his rightful identity as Jonas Castillo and to assume control of the David Castillo Foundation as established in his father's will. The judge, a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair, reviews the documents Miguel and I have prepared. Birth certificates, DNA tests ordered after we found David's hair in an old brush, the sealed will that names me as David's sole heir. Veronica's lead attorney stands. Your Honor, this petition is based on the accusations of a disturbed young man who has clearly been manipulated by disgruntled former associates of a man who died 20 years ago. Mr. Lane has lived his entire life as Jonas Lane, the son of Robert Lane, and this sudden claim of alternative paternity reeks of an attempt to access unearned assets. Unearned assets? I stand before my lawyer can stop me. Your Honor, David Castillo was my biological father. Veronica Lane deliberately concealed this fact to prevent me from knowing my true heritage. She created a fictional father to avoid the inconvenience of co-parenting with a man whose principles she found embarrassing. Objection, Veronica's attorney calls out. Speculation and inflammatory language. Mr. Castillo, the judge says using my father's name naturally, please continue but stick to facts. I take a breath, feeling David's presence like a hand on my shoulder. The facts are simple, Your Honor. DNA evidence proves David Castillo was my father. Legal documents prove he established a foundation in my name. And audio recordings prove that Veronica Lane knowingly concealed this information to maintain control over my life and to prevent me from interfering with her business interests. The judge listens to portions of the tapes we've prepared. Veronica's face remains impassive, but I can see the tension in her shoulders, the slight tremor in her hands as she realizes her own words are being used against her. Furthermore, I continue, evidence shows that Lane and Associates actively worked to undermine the very clients and causes my father died protecting. This isn't just about paternity or inheritance. It's about justice for the families who lost their homes while Veronica Lane profited from their displacement. The courtroom is silent except for the soft whir of the recording equipment. I can feel every eye on me, including Veronica's, and for the first time in my life I'm not intimidated by her gaze. The judge's ruling is swift and decisive. The petition is granted. Jonas Castillo is hereby recognized as the legal son and heir of David Castillo. Control of the David Castillo Foundation is transferred to the petitioner, effective immediately. As we leave the courthouse, Camila is waiting on the steps with a tablet showing her latest article. The son Veronica Lane tried to erase how a mother's ambition destroyed a father's legacy. The story is already going viral. Lane and Associates conference room is designed to intimidate. 30 feet of polished mahogany, floor-to-ceiling law books, portraits of founding partners glaring down from gilded frames. But today, for the first time in my life, I'm not intimidated by my mother's territory. Veronica sits across from me, flanked by lawyers, her perfect posture the only thing betraying the stress of the past month. Since Camilla's article broke, 3 major clients have dropped the firm, 2 associates have resigned, and the state bar has opened an ethics investigation. "Let's begin," says the court reporter, her fingers poised over the stenotype machine. My attorney, a sharp woman named Patricia Chen, who specializes in legal malpractice, slides a document across the table. "Mrs. Lane, do you recognize this correspondence dated March 10, 2003? Veronica barely glances at it. "I recognize my letterhead." "Please read the marked section aloud." Veronica's voice is steady, professional. "Mr. Castillo, your interference in the Meridian Development Project has been noted by several of my clients. I strongly advise you to reconsider your position before this matter escalates beyond legal disagreement." "And what did you mean by escalates beyond legal disagreement?" "I meant that continued harassment of my clients could result in legal action against Mr. Castillo." Patricia produces another document. This is a financial record showing a $50,000 payment from Meridian Development to Lane and Associates, dated 3 days after the above letter was sent. What was this payment for? Veronica's attorney objects, but the judge orders her to answer. "Legal consultation regarding property acquisition." Property acquisition in neighborhoods where David Castillo represented tenants? I don't recall the specific details. Let me refresh your memory. Patricia plays the audio recording we found, the one where Veronica threatens to erase David from my life unless he drops the Meridian case. The room goes silent. Veronica's perfect composure finally cracks, just slightly, like a hairline fracture in marble. "Mrs. Lane," Patricia continues, "did you use your custody of Jonas Castillo as leverage to pressure his father into abandoning his clients?" David Castillo was an unstable man who put his political agenda ahead of his family's well-being. That's not what I asked. Did you threaten to permanently separate a father from his son unless he abandoned legal cases that conflicted with your business interests? Veronica looks directly at me for the first time since we began. In her eyes, I see something I've never seen before. fear that her carefully constructed world is crumbling, and there's nothing she can do to stop it. I did what I thought was best for my son. By lying to him about his father's identity for 24 years? By protecting him from a man who would have taught him that failure is noble as long as your conscience is clear. The words hang in the air like a slap. Even her own attorneys look uncomfortable. Mrs. Lane, I say, speaking for the first time, what if I told you that David Castillo's work gave my life more meaning in 6 months than 24 years of your approval ever did? Her mask slips completely then, and for just a moment, I see the woman beneath the attorney, angry, bitter, and absolutely convinced that she was right to erase my father from my life. Then I would say you're as naive as he was, she snaps. Patricia smiles. No further questions, Your Honor. The David Castillo Foundation's grand reopening falls on a Tuesday in October, exactly 8 months after Miguel Reyes introduced himself at Veronica's charity gala. The building has been renovated, fresh paint, new furniture, modern computers, but David's desk remains exactly as he left it, a shrine to the work that continues in his name. Evan cuts the ribbon while cameras flash, and Camilla livestreams the ceremony for her newspaper's social media. The crowd includes former clients of David's who drove down from Los Angeles, current tenants we've helped avoid eviction, and several attorneys from other legal aid organizations who want to partner with us. The David Castillo Foundation, I tell the gathered crowd, exists for one simple reason: to ensure that having money doesn't determine whether you get justice. My father believed that the law should protect everyone, not just those who can afford protection. Today we continue that work. Maxwell Lane appears at the edge of the crowd, looking uncomfortable but determined. He approaches me after the ceremony, his usual corporate confidence replaced by something resembling genuine emotion. Jonas, he says, offering his hand. I wanted to apologize. I knew some of what Veronica had done, and I should have spoken up sooner. Why didn't you? He looks out at the renovated building, at the families celebrating on the sidewalk. Because I was more interested in protecting my investment than protecting the truth. But watching you fight for what your father built, it made me realize what real success looks like. I shake his hand, surprised by his sincerity. What about Veronica? She's not ready to acknowledge what she did wrong, he admits. Maybe she never will be. But I can't keep pretending that her version of the truth is the only one that matters. As evening falls, the crowd disperses, leaving just me, Evan, Camila, and Miguel in the Foundation's main office. We're planning our next cases. A group of elderly tenants facing illegal rent increases, a family whose apartment building is being converted to condos without proper relocation assistance, a single mother fighting an eviction based on falsified documents. Your father would be proud, Miguel says, settling into a chair that creaks with familiarity, not just of the Foundation, but of the man you've become. Camilla squeezes my hand. Over the past months, our professional partnership has evolved into something deeper, a relationship built on shared purpose and mutual respect. She's been offered a position with the LA Times, but she's decided to stay in San Diego to continue covering housing justice issues. What about Veronica, she asks. Any word on the state bar investigation? They've suspended her license pending review, I say. Evan heard through his contacts that she's considering a plea agreement in exchange for cooperation with the FBI's investigation into the Meridian Development conspiracy. Think she'll take it? I consider the question, thinking about the woman who raised me with such cold precision, who valued reputation above truth and power above love. I think she'll do whatever she thinks will let her maintain control of the narrative, but for the first time in her life, that's not up to her anymore. Quote, the cassette tape Miguel saved for last sits on my desk like a time bomb. He brought it by this morning with a simple note, when you're ready to say goodbye. Evening light slants through the Foundation's windows as I slide the tape into David's old player. The office is quiet, except for the distant hum of traffic and the soft scratch of the cassette beginning to play. Jonas, David's voice fills the room, warm and infinitely sad. If you're hearing this tape, it means I'm gone and you finally learned who you really are. I recorded this the night before I died. Not because I knew what was going to happen, but because I needed you to know that every day I didn't get to spend with you was the hardest day of my life. I closed my eyes, letting his words wash over me like a benediction. I know Veronica told you I chose work over family, that I abandoned you for my causes. The truth is more complicated. I chose the kind of world I wanted you to inherit over the comfort of staying in your life. I chose to fight for justice even when it meant losing you, because I believed that someday you would understand that some battles are worth any sacrifice. My throat tightens, and I understand finally that every choice David made was an act of love, even the ones that took him away from me. I want you to know that you don't have to carry my legacy if it doesn't fit who you are. You don't have to be a lawyer. You don't have to run the foundation. You don't have to spend your life fighting the same battles I fought. But I hope, I pray, that whatever you choose to do, you choose it because it makes the world a little bit better, not because it makes you a little bit richer. Through the window I can see families walking home from work, children playing in the small park across the street, the ordinary life of a neighborhood that David died protecting. This is his legacy, not the foundation or the legal victories, but the simple fact that people can still afford to live here, still have a place to call home. Your mother isn't evil, Jonas. She's afraid. Afraid that caring too much about other people will leave her vulnerable. Afraid that showing weakness will cost her everything she's worked for. But fear is a choice, and love is a choice, and every day you get to decide which one you want to feed. I think about Veronica, alone in her La Jolla mansion, surrounded by expensive things and empty rooms. For the first time in my life, I feel something approaching pity for her. The foundation has enough money to operate for years, but money isn't what makes a cause survive. What makes it survive is people who believe that everyone deserves dignity, everyone deserves a chance, everyone deserves someone willing to fight for them when they can't fight for themselves. The tape crackles with static, and I know we're near the end. I love you, Jonas. I loved you every day. I wasn't allowed to see you. Every night I couldn't tuck you in. Every birthday I couldn't celebrate with you. That love is yours now, along with everything else I'm leaving behind. Use it wisely. Use it well. Use it to build the kind of world where no child has to choose between having a father and having justice. The tape ends with a soft click, leaving me alone with the weight of inherited love and inherited responsibility. I sit in David's chair, in David's office, carrying David's name, and for the first time in my life, I know exactly who I am. On my desk is a legal brief I've been working on, a class action suit against a developer who's been systematically harassing tenants to force them out of rent-controlled apartments. At the bottom of the last page, I sign my name, Jonas Castillo, attorney at law. Outside, the city lights are coming on, and somewhere in those lights are families who need someone to fight for them. I have work to do, legacy to honor, and a future to build from the ashes of everything Veronica tried to erase. You don't have to carry their name to carry their power. You just have to carry the truth. Up next, we have 2 more incredible stories that are waiting for you. Just click the image you want to watch, and it will take you there. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. It would mean a lot.